Good day. Today is Saturday, the 4th of April, 2026. What I'm going to discuss today is a development in the missile campaign against Israel that I think represents a qualitative step change in the strategic threat environment, and that I believe the mainstream coverage has handled with considerably less technical depth than the subject warrants. We are talking about the Sejjil 2 ballistic missile. What it is, what it weighs, what it can do, why it has been held back for 16 days of this conflict before being deployed, and what its operational debut in the 54th wave of Operation Truthful Promise 4 tells us about where Iran believes this war is now going. Right, day 36. And I want to begin with two numbers that I think need to be placed alongside each other because the contrast between them is the beginning of the strategic story. 4 tons and 23.5 tons. 4 tons is approximately the launch weight of the Fatter II, the hypersonic glide vehicle that I discussed in detail earlier in this series. The missile that travels at Mach 13 to 15 and arrives before the Israeli warning system can complete its alert cycle. 12 tons is the launch weight of the Sejjil 2. The Fatter II is fast. The Sejjil 2 is massive, 5 to 6 times heavier. And those two sentences capture the essential strategic logic of what Iran has now introduced into the campaign against Tel Aviv. In the 54th wave of Operation Truthful Promise 4, on Sunday the 15th of March, the Islamic Revolution Guards Corps launched a barrage of missiles at the occupied territories, including the solid-fuel Sejjil-2 missile for the first time since the imposed war began in late February. The operation was executed under the code name Yazara, featuring a multitude of missiles, including the Super Heavy Kamshar with double warheads, as well as Khabar Kadur and Emad missiles apart from Sejjil 2. In a post on his X account, commander of the IRGC Aerospace Force, Brigadier General Majid Musavi, confirmed the launch of the Sejjil missile. The impact of the 54th wave was immediate and widespread. Israeli media reported that sirens bled in Tel Aviv, Herzliya, and at least 141 other locations across the occupied territories. 141 locations triggering simultaneously. Let that number sit for a moment. Now let me explain what the Sejjil 2 actually is, because I think the technical picture is as important as the political one, and I want to make sure it is properly conveyed. The SIL is a family of Iranian solid-fueled intermediate-range ballistic missiles. The Sejjil missile has a length of 18 mm, a diameter of 1.2, 25 mm, and an overall launch weight of 23,600 kilos. It can deliver a payload of around 700 kilos to a range of 2,000 km, or approximately 1.5 tons, to a shorter range of 1,000 kilometers, well within reach of Tel Aviv from Western Iranian launch positions. Iran says the Sejjil is capable of reaching Tel Aviv in about 7 minutes. 7 minutes. I want to compare that to something. The entire Israeli civil defense system is built around a 90-second warning time. Get the alert, find your shelter, get inside. 90 seconds. But 90 seconds is only possible if the incoming missile is detected early enough to process the warning, calculate the impact zone, trigger the sirens, and give people the 90 seconds they need. For a missile arriving in 7 minutes from the moment of launch, the total window from detection to impact might be 5 to 6 minutes. If the detection is immediate and perfect, that is time to issue the alert. It is time to get to a shelter if you are already close to one. It is very little time if you are elderly or disabled or caring for small children, or simply in a building where the shelter access is difficult or the doors are heavy. And the Sejjil 2, unlike the liquid fuel systems it partly replaces, does not give the Israeli intelligence services and American surveillance satellites the extended pre-launch preparation window that liquid fuel missiles require. That is the critical operational advantage of the solid fuel propulsion system, and I want to spend some time explaining it because it is central to understanding why the Sejjil 2 matters strategically in a way that goes beyond its raw payload. Solid fuel missiles are stored in a ready-to-launch state, allowing for rapid deployment with minimal preparation time. Older Iranian systems like the Shahab series rely on liquid fuel that must be loaded before launch, a time-consuming process that increases the risk of detection. A liquid fuel ballistic missile requires, depending on the system, between 30 minutes and several hours of fueling preparation before it can be launched. During that time, the transporter erector launcher vehicle is stationary. The fueling process involves large quantities of highly toxic propellant. Satellite surveillance can detect the thermal and chemical signatures of fueling operations. Intelligence services can identify the preparation window and potentially allocate assets to strike the launcher before it fires. This is part of the reason why the American and Israeli campaign has been targeting Iranian ballistic missile infrastructure, attempting to destroy launches and storage sites before the missiles can be used. The solid fuel missile eliminates most of that window. The Sejjil 2 is stored, fueled, and ready. The vehicle drives to a launch position. The missile is raised. It fires. The preparation time is measured in minutes rather than hours. There is no extended fueling process to detect. There is no thermal or chemical signature to identify in advance. By the time a surveillance satellite has identified the launch vehicle and passed the information to a targeting system, the missile may already be in the air. Solid fuel composites allow the missile to be stored while fully fueled, drastically reducing launch time. What truly distinguishes the Sejjil from earlier Iranian missiles is its solid fuel propulsion system and the road-mobile launch capability, meaning the missile can be moved and fired from any suitable location, makes fixed site targeting of the launcher before launch extremely difficult. This missile system is survivable in a way that liquid fuel systems fundamentally are not. Now, there is something rather significant in the timing of the Sejjil 2's debut in this conflict that I want to address because I think it tells us something important about Iranian strategic planning. The war began on the 28th of February. The 54th wave was launched around the 15th of March. 16 days into the conflict before the Sejjil 2 made its appearance. Why? Why hold it back for 16 days? The answer, I think, is that Israel struck several Sejjil production facilities during the June 2025 12-day war, significantly degrading Iran's ability to manufacture these advanced missiles. Remaining stockpiles became precious strategic assets. If production capacity has been reduced and stockpiles are finite, you do not expend the Sejjil 2 in the opening barges where quantity matters more than quality and where you want to overwhelm defenses with sheer volume. You hold the Sejjil 2 in reserve. You use the Fat 2 for its speed advantage, the Khorramshahr 4 for its cluster munition payload, the Arash 2 drones for their range and low radar cross-section, and then at the moment you choose to signal a qualitative escalation, at the moment you want to tell the Israeli military establishment that another layer of the strategic reserve is now being committed, you deploy the Sejjil 2 in Wave 54 against Tel Aviv, named the Yazara operation, with the IRGC Aerospace Force commander personally posting the confirmation on X. The deployment of the Sejjil is not just about firepower or a display of power. It shows that Iran is now bringing its new stockpile into the field. While there are reports of interception systems already under strain, solid fuel, mobile, and potentially maneuverable systems complicate detection and interception even further, making them deadlier in the current phase of the conflict. And I want to specifically address the interception problem posed by the Sejjil 2 because it is different in character from the interception problem posed by, say, the Fatr 2 hypersonic missile. The Fatr 2 is difficult to intercept because it is too fast. The Sejjil 2 is difficult to intercept for two additional reasons that compound the existing pressure on the Israeli and American defense systems. After leaving the atmosphere, the Sejjil travels along a ballistic trajectory before re-entering at hypersonic speeds, making it difficult for conventional air defense systems to track and destroy it. The re-entry phase of a two-stage ballistic missile traveling from Iran to Israel involves the warhead descending through the atmosphere at speeds that challenge the tracking capability of every intercept system in the Israeli inventory. The Arrow 2 is designed for exo-atmospheric intercept, engaging the warhead before it re-enters. The Arrow 3 is designed for even higher altitude intercept, but both of those systems depend on the intercept geometry being achievable, which depends on detection time, which depends on the radar coverage that has been progressively degraded throughout the first 5 weeks of this conflict. The Sejjil is referred to as a dancing missile, a nickname linked to its ability to maneuver during flight. Trajectory adjustments during re-entry reduce interception probability, especially against layered defenses. The Sejjil 2 can carry a MIRV, multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle system, enabling it to deliver multiple powerful warheads to separate targets in a single strike. Now, I want to be precise about this because the Mir-V capability of the Schedule II is something that Western analytical sources have neither confirmed nor denied with certainty, and I think intellectual honesty requires acknowledging that uncertainty. What we know is that Iranian state media and IRGC sources have claimed this capability. Whether it has been demonstrated in practice in this conflict is not fully clear from the open source reporting available to me. But I want to note that the claim is technically plausible given the Schedule II's launch weight and second stage capabilities. And if even a subset of the Schedule IIs being fired carry functional Mir-V payloads, the interception mathematics become qualitatively worse. A single intercept event must now simultaneously engage multiple independently maneuvering warheads rather than a single ballistic trajectory. No current Israeli defense system was designed for that scenario. And the specific target set announced in the 54th wave is worth noting carefully. The IRGC said the new barrage targeted centers of administration and decision-making, affecting the Israeli regime's air operations, as well as military and defense-related infrastructure. Centers of administration and decision-making affecting air operations. That is the Israeli Air Force command and control infrastructure. The nodes from which the Israeli air campaign against Iran is being directed. Iran is not simply firing at Tel Aviv as a symbolic gesture. It is firing specifically at the command infrastructure that coordinates the strikes being made against Iran. It is attempting to do to the Israeli air campaign exactly what the E-3 Century's destruction attempted to do to the American air campaign: destroy the decision-making architecture, blind the operation, degrade the capacity of the adversary to continue conducting strikes. And in subsequent waves, we see the Sejjil explicitly integrated into the broader missile mix in a sustained rather than one-off deployment. In the 79th wave of Operation Truthful Promise 4, the IRGC deployed the Sejjil alongside Kibar Shakan and IMAD missiles and IRGC Aerospace Force drones, successfully breaching the regime's multi-layered air defense systems. The missiles targeted intelligence facilities in northern and central Tel Aviv, as well as military, commercial, and support centers in Ramat Gan and the Negev. The missiles also hit Israel's southern military logistics and command headquarters in Beersheba, northern and central Tel Aviv. Ramat Gun Bersera spread across the full geographic length of the country, from the center to the south, simultaneously, with the SIL contributing its massive warhead to targets selected for their command and control significance. Major General Mohsen Ressi noted that the IRGC employed a combination of strikes using the Super Heavy Sejjil and the hypersonic Fada, which caused disruptions in the Israeli regime's air defense systems. The two weapons operating together represent a deliberate doctrinal pairing. The Fada arrives too fast to intercept. The Sejjil arrives with a warhead several times heavier than anything else in the Iranian inventory, except the Khurramshahr. Between them, they present the Israeli defense architecture with simultaneous demands that exploit two entirely different kinds of defense limitation in the same operational window. High speed against one part of the defense envelope, massive mass against another. And if the Arrow 2 engages the Sejjil at high altitude, while the Fatter 2 is coming in below the intercept window at Mach 15, the fire control system is attempting to manage two fundamentally different threat physics simultaneously with a depleted interceptor stockpile. And just days before the 28th of February, just before the current war began, the Iranian Minister of Defense announced the successful testing of a missile equipped with a two-tonen warhead. The platform was not specified, but the most likely candidates given the weight class are either the Sejjil or the Hamshir in a reinforced warhead configuration, 2 tons. For context, the warhead that struck the residential street in central Tel Aviv on the 24th of March and produced gaping holes in a multi-story apartment building, gutting multiple floors and leaving residents shaking and saying it was right above us, right here above us, carried approximately 100 kilos of explosives, 100 kilos. The Sejjil 2 at maximum warhead configuration at shorter ranges can deliver 1.5 tons to targets within 1,000 kilometers, 15 times the explosive content of the warhead that demolished a building in central Tel Aviv. Against hardened military targets and command infrastructure, that scale of payload is not simply more destructive, it is categorically more destructive. The appearance of Sejjil 2 on the battlefield marks a new phase in Iran's missile doctrine. Its combination of power, range, and survivability signals a major shift and a significant new challenge. The SEO missile has a unique Iranian design. Unlike most other Iranian systems, it bears no resemblance to any North Korean, Russian, Chinese, or Pakistani missile technology. As Uzi Rubin, the former director of Israel's Ballistic Missile Defense Organization, has noted, Iran built this indigenously over 2 decades, and it has now deployed it in combat against Israel in a war that was launched with the stated intention of destroying Iran's military capability so thoroughly that he could never again threaten Israel or American interests in the region. And yet, in the 54th wave of Iran's retaliatory campaign, Iran deployed the Sejjil 2 for the first time in this conflict, and in the 79th wave, it was deployed again, and in waves after that, it continues to appear. Whether this marks a sustained shift or a limited escalation remains uncertain, but it clearly signals that the technological threshold in the conflict is rising. The technological threshold is rising. Each week of this conflict has seen Iran introduce a new weapon category. The FAT R2 hypersonic, the FAT R3 cluster hypersonic, the Nazala multi-warhead missile, the Arash-2 long-range drone, and now the Sejjil 2. 23 1-2 tons, 2 stages, solid fuel, road mobile, reaching Tel Aviv in 7 minutes from any point in Iran with a payload that can carry up to 1.5 tons to shorter range targets and a MV delivery capability that the Israeli defense establishment has not publicly addressed. 141 locations triggering sirens simultaneously, Tel Aviv, Herzliya, and 139 other places across the country. Day 36, the Sejjil 2 has entered the campaign. Anyway, that is me for today. In these very difficult and dangerous days, wherever you are watching from, I wish you peace and safety. Have a very good